Hi, everybody. Hello, hello. So glad to see you all here today to learn about emergency preparedness from our favorite nurse, Trish. Yay. Yes, yay, Trish. Before I hand things over to Trish, I just wanted to thank Care One and Sharon for providing the refreshments again today. They're always so good to us. Thank you. All right, Trish, you're on.
Thank you, Deb. Can everybody hear me okay with the microphone? Should I hold it closer? Is that better? I'll talk right into it. Oh, sure. Is that better? Hearing? Well, thank you, everybody, for coming here today, for learning a little bit about emergency preparedness for Emergency Preparedness Month of September. There's a lot of information to cover. I try to just kind of broke it down into really what we'd see here in Massachusetts, Walpole, some of our great local resources that we have. We'll go through kind of supply kits to have on hand to basically have ready to go. Do you need me louder? I'll sit real close to it. That better? So we'll be going over a lot of information. I have handouts on the table up front here, and then at the end of the program, Carrie, Deb will help me hand out some of the to-go bags that we started to put together, just to kind of get your kit started. And then, again, just personalize them as you go through it and go through the lists of things you think you need. So I'll go through my whole presentation. Any questions, I'll grab them at the end, and I'll try to answer anything I can the best of my ability. So why does emergency preparedness matter? Disasters obviously can happen at any time, especially here in Massachusetts. You know, there's always the threat of different storms, whether it's winter storms, extreme heat warnings, extreme heat that can lead to power outages. So being prepared will really help us save lives. It protects our property. It reduces the impact of disasters by providing knowledge, skills, resources to respond effectively to anything that might be unexpected. This is just a little example, you know, our blizzard of 78, is that correct? Blizzard of 78. The hurricanes, I mean, there's just so many different possibilities. We're fairly lucky when you see what happens, you know, throughout the rest of the country as far as with tornado threats. But we were even, you know, had a lot of tornado warnings not too long ago out in central Mass. So some common weather emergencies in Massachusetts, of course, include winter storms, you know, nor'easters, hurricanes, tropical storms. We could have some severe thunderstorms, power outages, flooding, and then extreme heat. Really just being aware of some of the threats that can happen in Massachusetts, that can happen throughout Walpole. Being aware, just staying alert with weather alerts, the news, any sort of, you know, upcoming forecasts. We'll talk a little bit about, you know, receiving weather alerts on your phone. Any sort of, you know, different emergency alerts. You can have different settings, usually on your cell phones, whether it's you know, you have the iPhone or an Android. You can get different alerts for different emergencies that are coming within our area. They're just great to have. And what we'll kind of focus on today is having a plan of if you have to stay home and staying safe, or if you do actually have to evacuate. So the very first thing, so important, is just having a personal emergency plan. You really want to be able to have a plan in place so that whether it's your family that's close by, family in another state, your neighbors, your friends, different relatives that are in the area, so everybody kind of is on the same page. You want to just have super easy access to any of your emergency contacts. If you do have to evacuate, let's say if there was something happening here, even through the center of town, and you know, okay, if I'm at the senior center and we have to evacuate, we follow all the, you know, guidance from police, fire, all of our first responders. But if you at least have your emergency contacts on you to be able to let them know where you are, what's happening, I'm safe. If you're at home or within your neighborhood, just having a safe meeting place if you know you have to evacuate your house. And it's a time of panic. Everybody's kind of running, panicking, trying to grab their go bags, all the things. You know where you're meeting. You want to share this plan, like I said, and you also have to plan for your pets. A lot of stories came out of, a lot of the severe hurricanes of just animals that were left behind, pets that were left behind, dogs, cats, stranded. So it's not always ideal depending on what you have for pets at home. If you're grabbing a fish tank versus, a 100-pound golden retriever like we have, it's not easy, but you want to have a plan in place. So at least if you are stuck sheltering at home, or if you do have to evacuate, again, you have a plan in place for what you have for your pets, where they're going to go, and what you're going to need for them. When we talk about even just keeping a copy of this, if you don't necessarily have to keep it on you, but if you have it in your emergency bag, again, it's just kind of some of those important documents to have ready to go and grab as you're going out the door. So when we're building an emergency supply kit, there are so many things we can put in there. A lot of it is your personal needs. What's going to keep you most comfortable? What do you need? What that you cannot live without? A lot of things we hear about this. Well, I should just say there's a little bit of a difference as far as packing your emergency supply kit for sheltering in place. If we're going to have to be staying at home, like for the blizzard, you think, back in 78 when a lot of people couldn't leave their homes, just having that box, that kind of Tupperware bin, whatever you want to put it in, that you can pull out, and you've got some extra waters in there. You've got non-perishable foods. You got your flashlights, the batteries, anything like that. And then there's also the preparation for having, if you do need to evacuate, and having your little to-go bag, which is a little bit kind of a smaller compilation of all of this, of what your kit would be, because you want this bag easy enough to kind of take and go. So if you have 3 days worth of canned goods and 3 days worth of gallons of water, you can't really just pick that up, throw it on your shoulder, and head on out. So a little bit of a difference when you're building your kits. You kind of want to be thinking about, what do I need if I'm going to be at home? Usually we base it off of you have a good 3 days worth of supplies versus if I need to evacuate. So some of the things primarily that we like to recommend for those bags, to-go bags, is, toiletries, basic toiletries. Make sure you have your medications, any important documents, even if it has to be a copy of them, a first aid kit, the cell phone, chargers, portable power banks, battery powered or solar powered radios are great. There is so much information out there now that you can get so many things on Amazon. You can get so many things at Walmart and Target. So just even just the little travel sizes. And then if you were to look up, I'll get into a lot of the online resources, but anything online, they will basically spell it out exactly like, hey, if you want to build your very first kit, this is what you need. Click on this link, add them to your cart, and everything there's so many more options now, which is really phenomenal. But you can also keep it simple. It's a lot of, you could go crazy and have just, bins and bins. You could be a prepper, and you could be prepping for, worst case scenario, and be prepared to stay in your home for, 2 to 3 weeks versus 2 to 3 days. So there's just, when you're starting out, I think it's overwhelming. People start thinking like, I know I need be prepared, and okay, yeah, I'll get to it. But we can't always count on these emergencies when they happen. We don't know the severity, especially with a lot of weather emergencies. Just be ready. Something simple to start. Keep it simple. and just kind of build on it as you go through it. So we, as I was going to say too, just talking about the building a kit, we'll have kind of these go bags that we put together were put together by a lot of our MRC volunteers. We had a training day on Saturday, and our MRC coalitions had a lot of toiletries that have been donated or that we've gotten through grant money for the purpose of having these bags ready if we ever need to open a shelter here in Walpole. We'd have them ready. I talked about doing this presentation. They were like, let's put a bunch of bags together. So they'll all be a little different. They all have the basic needs, but just remember, it's definitely there. Some of the brands are generic. Some of them aren't, like Pert Plus. I mean, I don't know if anybody uses Pert Plus, but in an emergency, these are things you're going to use. And again, it's just kind of a good way to start your own kit. Make it personal. The things you love. Start kind of getting an idea of what do you need for your own personal needs. You're going to, like I had already mentioned, include medications. You want to make sure you have a list. Often, most of us have like the file of life that we have on us or in some sort of an emergency bag that will just review medications, allergies. You want to remember your glasses. You want to remember your hearing aids, change of clothes, comfort items. When you think of packing for something like this, including a lot of your medical and personal needs, this would be a bigger focus, let's say, if we had to open a shelter. Here in Walpole, we've done like cooling centers. We've actually done it here at the senior center for extreme heat. It may cause power outages. Some people will then be out of AC. If we're having a heat wave longer than 3 days, you don't have access to air conditioning, things like that. We will open up, whether it's in this building or one of the schools, either a cooling center, a warming center, a shelter. And these are kind of some of the things you want to make sure you have. You don't know how long you're going to be there. You don't know how long that section of town's going to be out of power, let's say. So just, again, general comfort things, not to go crazy. You don't have to arrive, with suitcases or anything like that. It's truly just in an emergency, what's going to really kind of work to get you by for those days. As we talked about, don't forget your pets. Ideally, you're able to take your pets with you if you have to evacuate somewhere. I know a lot of the trainings we do through the American Red Cross for sheltering, there's a whole focus around pets in shelters. So it's almost like making their own bag to go if they're on special food. Or if you are sheltering at home, just make sure you have 3 days worth roughly of water for yourselves, but also for your pets, because that something like water will go through so fast. Medications, their immunization records. Sometimes you can get pet specific first aid kits, which is really just, they might just have little gauze and bandages, things like that. Just things that you want separate for your pets versus what you're going to be using for yourself. A collar, a leash, a carrier if you have a cat, and any sort of identification tags. If you were to be reporting to a shelter, and a lot of the animal protocols would be, making sure that they're up to date with their immunizations and their rabies and whatnot, because you're in a large area with a lot of people and oftentimes other pets as well. And then they all need their own comfort items, as, if it's a favorite toy that they have or a blanket or something like that. It's a stressful time. So anything to kind of keep them a little more comfortable is just going to kind of relax yourself as the owner, relax, the people that are working with you and your pets. You definitely want to stay connected. I feel like this is even easier now with so many of the weather notifications that we have access to, where before, many years ago, where you didn't have the warnings, the severities. They can track so much, so fast now. that you want to be registered for any sort of community alert options that there are. The Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, MEMA, here is if you go onto their website through mass.gov, they've got tremendous amount of information. They've got information about how to be alerted, whether it's on a landline home phone, whether it's on a cell phone, whether it is you're getting, the text alerts versus just kind of the big beeping emergency alerts. They're phenomenal with the information they can get. You can get advance notifications for severe weather, any sort of emergency alerts. And that way, a lot of times you can also have it within your region of Massachusetts. So even if it's not Walpole or Sharon or Stoughton specific, right, we're kind of within the same region. So within this region, you can really narrow down what alerts you'll get. If you have family out in Western Mass, you might want to be, aware of what's going on out there. Especially, again, with those tornadoes that came through, it's a little terrifying. We were, I used to live in Worcester, and we had quite a few tornado warnings. And being from, North Shore, I had never had to go through one before, and it's a little terrifying. So it's just the less you really have to think about in a time of emergency, and the more prepared you are, and the more warning you have, take advantage of it. A big thing is using a buddy system, kind of like when we were back in school. It's to check on your family members, check on your neighbors. Power goes down or cell phone reception's not that great. If it's safe to do so and you are able to go and check on community members, your neighborhood members, any sort of neighbors, especially if you know somebody's living by themselves, if they have any sort of disabilities, especially if they have any sort of devices that rely on electricity, like oxygen machines or any ventilators, things like that. Don't always assume that somebody else is taking care of them. Oh, they must have, their daughter Susie, I'm sure, is on that. Susie might be stuck in her, realm of where she lives. She might be sheltering in place. She might not be able to have any access. So always, always good to check on family, friends, neighbors, any way that you can. And if your power does go out, how do you get a hold of local authorities? We're in a world of cell phones now, where thankfully we're still able to call 911 in event of emergency and power outages. You want to get a hold of Eversource. That way you can get updated reports of power outages, estimated times of restoration, anything like that. So the more, again, include all these little numbers on your cards, the more information you have right there in front of you will really turn a super stressful moment into something, all right, you feel a little more in control, feel a little more calm. And just at home, kind of a lot of the common things we've talked about, I feel like forever, with, having batteries for your flashlights. Because when you need to go to use it is when your batteries are going to be out. Make sure you know where all your flashlights are, that they're easily accessible. If there's a possibility of severe weather coming through your area, make sure you take them out already. You don't want to be digging underneath the kitchen sink in the dark, trying to pull out all these things. Avoid electrical hazards. That's a lot with down power lines, whether it's right outside of your house, across the street, especially with any sort of flooding and rainstorms, things like that. You don't want to be walking through deep water. You definitely, even after the storm passes, you just want to make sure that you're still monitoring all the official updates. If you have a radio that is, solar powered or with crank powered, they even have just these small little ones you can have available, just to be tuned in to get your your weather updates, because even though the storm passes and you're like, oh, thank goodness, no damage, and we're all heading out, there could still be a lot of damage around within your neighborhood or the community. And just follow the guidelines of your local authorities. Walpole's amazing. I can speak specifically for Walpole as far as their reverse 911, just getting information out and trying to keep community members really in the know of what's going on around town, especially after an emergency. You want to be able to, obviously, if we have along with your flashlights and your go bags and any emergency supplies, your fire extinguishers, outside, prior to severe weather, just making sure you have the walkways clear. Oftentimes, especially with things like hurricanes, things like that, you want to get a lot of the lawn furniture, let's say, out, things that are on your porch or your deck. You don't want to risk having anybody injured with anything coming through the house or windows, anything like that. Also, home safety tips, speaking of which, severe weather alerts, you don't want to be right at your windows, the doors, kind of like watching it come through. You got to be real careful of any sort of injury of trees, limbs, anything that could be coming, crashing through a window and causing more damage, injuring yourself, and then unfortunately putting yourself, your family, and your home more at risk. So usually you like to create a safe place. That if part of your personal emergency plan would be, where is that safe place in our house? It could be, a storm cellar, the basement, any interior room. They often say like a closet or an area like right underneath the stairs. Or if you're able to get on the lowest floor and away from doors and windows, that can be your safe spot of where you're going to be meeting in the event of a severe storm. If you're sheltering in place and you're going to that safe spot, just make sure you've got your little kit with you. Unfortunately, you just don't know what other kind of damage happens, whether outside or within your home. Stay away from windows, I said. The other thing too is lightning, severe thunderstorms. That's something fairly common we get around here. You always get the warnings of, if you have any sort of like the weather radar apps or anything on your phone or emails that come through, they'll oftentimes will tell you that lightning's been detected, within the past 30 minutes or within the, a certain radius, and to go indoors, stay indoors until that threat is passed. You want to be, avoiding being outside in big puddles, underneath trees, anything like that. Just if you're able to get in somewhere safe during, if you're outside during a severe thunderstorm with lightning, best thing, oftentimes you're stuck out on the fields watching one of the kids' baseball games or football games, things like that. Those are tough. Oftentimes we have people try to take cover, whether it's in the snack shack or, getting into your car and just staying put there. So again, it's just a lot of, depending on where you are when things occur, just take the advice and follow the direction of, whoever's in charge of wherever you are, whether it's in a building like here, whether you're out on a field, whether you're in your own home, just be listening to, a lot of the weather updates. So a big thing during any sort of emergency, I feel like, is just the best you can to stay calm. It's very nerve-wracking. We talk about this a lot, even when I do, my CPR classes. It's just your adrenaline kicks in. The biggest thing is to stay calm. So the better you're prepared, the more you feel like, okay, yeah, I've got this, severe weather's coming through, or there's, high heat index. There's a concern of power outages coming, but it's all right. Like, I know I've got this ready. I've got that ready. The preparation alone is what will give you and your family so much more confidence. You're going to be a lot calmer responding to an emergency. you have a plan. Once you get your plan set up, you have it. Just follow your plan. This is a great time, when you do start getting warnings or as we're going into winter time, just take another look through your bag. Or if you have emergency boxes already ready to go, this is a great time while we're talking about it. Go through the box. Just make sure nothing's expired. Make sure everything is still, it's good, it's usable, your batteries are still good. They're not in the extra batteries are great, but not if they're corroded and 15, 20 years old. So this is a great time to just go through and make sure everything's up to date. You want to really stay informed, like I keep pushing out there, but don't go overboard. If there are, severe hurricanes coming through Florida, there's no reason to panic yet for up here in Massachusetts. Like we are out, wait, just don't go overboard. You can get a little overwhelmed with the amount of weather alerts we get for all over the country, and it's hard to know, well, how much is going to dissipate before it gets here versus not. Don't panic. Just kind of keep yourself informed, but not, too overly informed. It just kind of will add to your anxiety, unfortunately. Stay safe. That's our big thing. And responding to emergencies or being a part of an emergency, just seeing safety is always the number one rule. Because we are no good if we want to go out and check on our neighbor that we know lives alone, she's without power, but we see that there's down power lines. We are going to be no good to that neighbor checking on them if something happens to us when we go out. So be safe. Scene safety before you leave your house. Survey what's going on outside. Make sure your family within your home is safe. Everybody's okay. Nobody's injured. And don't take those unnecessary risks. We have a lot of first responders. We've got some really great local teams within Walpole that, are trained to do that and go out and really do storm assessments and things like that. So don't go out and try to move that limb off the crosswalk because, someone's eventually going to be, heading to school in a couple days. Just be safe. It's not worth the risk. So as I was saying, just after that emergency has passed, you want to check yourself and others for injuries. Be cautious. You want to be real careful of anything outside like we've gone over before. Stay safe. You don't want to re-enter any sort of damaged buildings or homes. Even if it's your own home or if it's a neighbor's home, the best thing to do is to call it into authorities so you can give your own feedback of this is where I live, this is my address, this is what I see. There's a tree down here, this house here. You going in and putting yourself at risk isn't worth it. But at least if you're able to report it, that's still doing something. You want to, again, wait for help to arrive if you can't leave safely. You can even report if you're calling in to emergency responders. Yeah, there's down power lines kind of all down throughout our street with I don't think it's safe to leave the house, or I see my neighbor trying to leave, or things like that. Just keep an eye out for each other. Report anything that seems to be extremely dangerous. Don't take it upon yourself to do any heroics by any means. And probably one of the most important things is contact on that emergency contact list. Let your family and friends know you're okay. That's usually they're trying to contact you, you're trying to reach them. So the sooner you can let everybody know your status, I'm all right, we're home, our house is undamaged, or our house was damaged, we had to go to the neighbors. Keep those lines of communication open. That also will decrease a lot of the panic that tends to happen. So for some of our local and online resources, Walpole is extremely lucky. We have an emergency management director, John Lightbody, which some people might know. He worked real closely with Roger Turner in the similar role. So he took over for Roger, and John works with his team of his emergency management team, and they work on plans for Walpole for any kind of an emergency. So whether it's flooding, whether it's extreme heat, our sheltering plans, you name it, he has a plan that he works with us at the health department, the fire department, police department. So we're all on the same page as far as something happens. We have a plan. Walpole knows what they're going to do. They know where they're going to go, who they're going to disperse, where, when. They have a website on our Town of Walpole website with a lot of information. There's information about how to access FEMA, how to access MEMA, how to sign up for alerts, how to be involved. They have a whole section on pets and how to keep them safe and during emergencies. It's a tremendous amount. And John and his team also oversee the Walpole CERT, which I don't know if many of you have heard of. It's a community emergency response team. It's a great group of medical and non-medical volunteers, and they hold monthly meetings. I'm part of his CERT team, and it's fascinating. We do radio work. We do like mock search and rescues. We do, kind of weather assessments. We're kind of like, depending on where we live in town, of who's responsible for what area of town, to say, yes, this is what's going on. This is what's happened. So when an emergency happens, we've got a whole list of procedures that will be followed. Obviously, the first responders of police and fire. The CERT team tends to act as some of the community, the citizens that will then, because the fire and police can't be everywhere, we tend to be like their additional eyes and ears. So it's great for more of the local, right in your neighborhood, to have some of that, the weather assessments, kind of any storm damage, any reports like that can go in. And it really helps them. It then helps the first responders know where to prioritize, where they're going to be going. And then kind of in conjunction of that, Walpole also has a medical reserve corps that we are trying to do a lot of work kind of jointly with the CERT team. So the MRC, the Medical Reserve Corps, again, is a lot of volunteers that are medical and non-medical, and they are trained. It used to be individual per town, so the health director, Melissa Ranieri, and I were in charge of a lot of the trainings. So now Walpole is actually part of, is 2019. We joined what's called the Norfolk County 8 Medical Reserve Corps. So it's the NC8 MRC, and it's a community, it's 8 communities: Canton, Dedham, Milton, Needham, Norwood, Walpole, Wellesley, and Westwood. I always write it down because I always forget somebody. And being part of this community now this coalition gives us more grant funding, more training opportunities. So we do a lot of work and a lot of training with the Walpole CERT. So our MRC volunteers do a lot with flu clinics, is probably where you would mostly see a lot of our volunteers. But again, trained in shelters. So if a shelter needed to be opened in Walpole, first responders are there for notifications and security, safety. But then we have our certain MRC volunteers that are there actually working the shelters, getting people in, registered, getting your information, seeing if you need to contact anybody. We have big shelter trainings, and I think there's one coming up with, we learn about setting up cots and crates for the dogs. So there's just so many resources nationally, federally, within Massachusetts, but then kind of trickles down locally. A lot of towns are now part of these regional coalitions. So if you weren't one of the towns that I mentioned, part of the Norfolk County 8, there's also like Middle Fork is another coalition. And what we're trying to do is power in numbers. The more volunteers we can get together from different communities, kind of the more we can do. And then obviously FEMA, MEMA, American Red Cross they always have phenomenal information. And then a lot of the information I got that's on the table is from a website called ready.gov. Again, they break down so many great ideas for different kits, what to do for emergency preparedness, how to be ready, what you might need. So there's a lot of online resources. But if there's ever a point that you have something specific that you're concerned about or that you would like more information on, and you can't really navigate through the sites as far as what you're looking for or finding what you want, reach out to me, because if I don't have it, we likely have some sort of resource that we can connect you with to kind of get you that information that you need. And kind of some final thoughts. So as I was saying, preparedness, it's so important in so many aspects of everything we do. It increases our independence, makes us feel safe, a little more confident. There's so much focus, I know, too, with a lot of the talks we have about, aging at home and keeping our home safe. You want to be comfortable in the home you're in. And if you have supplies that you need, and you have the kits that you need, and you've got your emergency plan, you can then be comfortable being where you are. If it's safe to stay in your home during severe weather, stay in your home. Review your plan and your kit yearly, but do it more often, even, twice a year as we get into the real hot weather. And then once we're heading into the winter storms. You want to talk with your family, friends, and neighbors about emergency readiness and preparedness, especially if you're in kind of more of a community setting, apartment setting, any sort of complex. It'd be great to know what your neighbors are planning to do. What do your neighbors have for in case of an emergency, or what's their plan? Or, if you have to evacuate your buildings, where do you meet? Where's the safe spot that you're going to be? Maybe even just having a phone tree within some of your close neighbors that you know well. It's just good to have just a little someone to check in on you, and really just be looking out for each other. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them the best that I can. I know I was like, yes.
I have a question about, I do have a kit,
Mm-hmm.
and haven't been checking it yearly, but I would like to know, when you discard what's in there because it's expired, how do you dispose of that?
So the question is, how do we dispose of a lot of the expired things that are in our kits when we go through them? Majority of things you can throw out in the trash. Medications, no. So medications would have to either go to the Walpole Police Department or the Walpole CVS. Or we actually have, in the health department, we just got these bags that you put the medications in, you add a little water, shake it up, and they dissolve. And then it's safe to go in the trash because you seal them up. Things like, if it's anything like needles or syringes, we take all that at the health department. Anything else, though, even a lot of the batteries, this is a big question we get at the health department. A lot of the batteries are now safe to throw in the trash, even the hearing aid ones. It's been a few years that we had a collection for like mercury, things like that. But now they're finding that there's just, even what we were collecting is now beyond what used to contain mercury or anything harmful to go out into the trash. So anything like that you can throw in the trash. Walpole specifically goes to an incinerator. So it's not sitting in a landfill, but a lot of that stuff you can. But any questions, if you have really old things that like the old mercury thermometers. We still get a lot of people turning those in. We'll take them. Any question, just call the health department and we'll at least be able to figure out what to do with it and how to dispose it. Yes. So usually the rule of thumb is they'll recommend at least a gallon a day per person. And that's kind of just the minimum of that. And you can plan on more, like things that we still recommend to do is filling your bathtub with water. If you lose water and you are going to then need the water, not just drinking water, but you're going to need it for flushing toilets or things like that, fill up your bathtub. But to remember as well, if you have, so that's per person, and depending on the age of the people. If you have, little grandbabies at home that need the water for formula or things like that, you're going to then need more. But that's usually, and to plan for at least have 72 hours, 3 days worth of water and non-perishable foods available. Any other questions? I feel like I went really fast through that. But let me grab Carrie and Debbie, and I have them all on a cart. We're going to wheel in all the bags just to make sure everybody gets one as you exit. And again, just we put them together as black string bags, so they're super easy to store. They're very roomy. Go through what's in there, get an idea of what else you would want or need. Oh, thank you. Do you mind? That would be great. Thank you. And just use it as a starting point. Use that as you build up to get your Tupperware bin of things that you keep in the basement to pull out as you need. But the more you got ready, the better. Thank you.